Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We have a full room today, and we're very excited about that. Thank you all for coming. Please, I want to welcome you to the regular meeting of the Southern Shores Town Council this gorgeous April 14th, 2026 morning. If everyone could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next, we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, there is an agenda in front of us. Are there any amendments to the agenda, or may I hear a motion to approve?
So moved to approve.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
So moved to approve.
Second.
It's never done that before.
Oh, big brother.
It's on silent, too.
It's listening.
Someone else's phone needs to be on silent. We have a motion to approve the agenda and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. We have an agenda. Today, we have a rather hefty consent agenda. It consists of 8 different items. I won't bother to read them all because there's so many of them. I would like to say there's a resolution in support of continued direct local citizen input in municipal property tax programs, as well as the other 7. So, Council, may I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. We have an approved consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, so we have a very exceptional and important presentation today. And before I get to that, I would like to recognize some very special guests that were with us today. I would like to recognize our state senator, Bobby Hanig. Where'd you hide? There he is. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. I also want to thank him for his consistent support of the Mid-Currituck Bridge during his 2 terms in the House and his 2 terms in the North Carolina Senate. I would also like to recognize the mayor of Duck, Monica Thibodeau, who is with us today. Thank you for being here, Monica. Additionally, I want to recognize our District 1 Board of Transportation representative, Tess Judge, is here with us today. Thank you for coming today, Tess. If I've missed any special guests, I think Cliff is going to take care of the rest of the special guests who are with us today.
Ethan Summers.
Oh. Paul is telling me that someone from the ARPO, Ethan Summers, is here?
Ethan Summers.
Oh, Ethan, there you are. Thank you for being here, Ethan. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Cliff, who's going to take care of the introductions from our esteemed Board of Transportation staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Ronnie Sawyer is who I'm introducing. He's Division 1 engineer for NCDOT. I'm going to let him introduce his crowd, make sure we get it right. But Ronnie's going to start the presentation about the bridge today.
Thank you, Cliff. Yeah, again, my name is Ronnie Sawyer. I'm the division engineer for Division 1 with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. And we're here today. I brought some others with me, but we're here today to talk about the status of the Mid-Currituck Bridge upon request from the council and from the town manager. I have with me today David Wasserman. He's the Deputy Director of Division of Planning and Programming. He's going to be doing most of the presentation today. and David Roy he's the Director of Innovative Finance with the Turnpike Authority, and he is here as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Wasserman to start the presentation.
Got to get used to this level sand or level ground here. Good morning. I'm David Wasserman, the Deputy Director of the Division of Planning and Programming. Happy to be here to talk to you about the Mid-Currituck Bridge. It is referred to in sure. I'm going to talk about the Mid-Currituck Bridge. It's referred to as TIP project number R2576. So if you see that number, that's what it is in reference to. So I'm going to talk about how transportation projects are funded in North Carolina in general terms, give you some background to begin with, and then we'll focus specifically on the Mid-Currituck Bridge. Sure. So we have the State Transportation Improvement Program. It's also known as the STIP. And we have the Strategic Transportation Investments Prioritization Process. You will hear me use the term STI, and that refers to the Strategic Transportation Investments, which was a law passed in 2013 that directs how the department selects and funds transportation projects across the state. So let's talk about the STIP itself. This is a federally required document and a state required document as well. It's a planning document listing most capital projects that the department expects to deliver over the next 10 years. Includes all projects, costs, funding, and schedules. There's about $32 billion worth of funding across the entire 10-year program. It has to follow federal and state law, including that Strategic Transportation Investments law that I just mentioned. It has to be fiscally constrained, meaning we have to select projects and fund projects within our budget. And it is a living document. It is updated on a monthly basis. So in the STIP, there's 22 different funding buckets or funding categories, and you will hear me use those terms interchangeably throughout the presentation. So the first is the statewide bucket, where about 40% of the funds go to. And here the types of projects we're looking at are interstate maintenance, such as resurfacing our interstate projects, replacing bridge projects, and safety projects on eligible projects in this category. And I'll talk about that here in a second. And then we have projects selected through the Strategic Transportation Investments Prioritization Process. The second category is called regional impact. And here that 30% is subdivided into 7 different funding buckets, referred to as regions, regions A through G. And the amount of money going to each region is based on the percent of the state's population. So we're in region A here, and I'll show you a map in a second, where about 8% of the state's population resides, and so 8% of the funding goes into that bucket. And in each of these 7 different buckets, we look at programming bridge projects and safety projects, along with projects selected through the prioritization process. And then lastly, the last 30% is called our division needs buckets. And here, that 30% is divided equally between the 14 transportation divisions across the state. And similar to the other buckets, we program bridge projects, safety projects. For those divisions that have an MPO, MPOs select projects, they get funded from these funding categories. And then lastly, projects selected through the prioritization process. So altogether, there are 22 different funding categories or funding buckets that we have in the STIP. So this is our map showing the 100 counties of North Carolina. We are in obviously the northeastern part of the state. I don't have a mouse here, but to show you, we are in Division 1, and we're also in Region A. So projects in the division needs category all compete against each other in Division 1. And in the Region A category, projects compete all the way from Dare all the way to Johnston County across Region A. So the STI law describes the eligible projects in each of the funding categories. And I'm going to really focus on the statewide mobility here. On the highway side, you have interstates, routes on the national highway system, military routes, which is STRANET, and designated toll facilities. And so I mentioned designated toll facilities because that's what the Mid-Currituck Bridge is. And so Mid-Currituck Bridge is eligible for funding in the statewide category, and as you'll see in a minute, it means it's also eligible for funding in the regional impact and division needs categories. It has 3 chances to receive funding. So the way the prioritization process works is all projects receive a numerical score that are evaluated. And projects are submitted by metropolitan planning organizations. So think of your Raleigh area, Charlotte, Asheville, Wilmington's. Your rural planning organizations, we're here in the Albemarle RPO, here in Ethan's representing the Albemarle RPO. And then we have divisions submit projects as well. So they are submitted to the department, to our Strategic Prioritization Office of Transportation, effectively known as SPOT, where the projects and the data are reviewed. And then the quantitative scores are calculated for all projects submitted. And this is in upwards of over 2,000 projects we're calculating scores. And so for the current prioritization cycle, affectionately known as P8.0 or prioritization 8.0, the data has just been reviewed and we will be publishing the scores here at the end of next month.
I'm sorry. The end of next month, that will be published, is that what you said?
Correct, the end of May. So then what happens is we actually start programming or selecting projects for funding in each of the 3 categories. So first we start with the statewide mobility category, again, where 40% of the funds go. And here projects are ranked based on, in descending order based on score from highest to lowest. And we go down that statewide bucket until we run out of funds. Now, projects that don't make the funding cut or aren't selected for funding in the statewide category, they are then eligible for funds in the regional impact category where that 30% is. So in each of those 7 different funding regions, the MPOs, RPOs, and divisions assign what we call local input points to indicate local priority for projects. So those local input points make up 30% of the score, and the other remaining 70% is based on data. I should have mentioned the statewide category that the statewide score is 100% based on data. So we total up the scores in the region in each of the 7 different funding regions, and then we sort the scores in descending order, and we go down each of the 7 funding regions until the funding runs out. And then projects not selected in any of those funding regions are then eligible for funding in the division needs category in one of those 14 buckets that I mentioned earlier. And so here the process is repeated where MPOs, RPOs, and divisions assign local input points. And here the local input makes up half the score, 50% of the score. And the other half is made up by the quantitative data. And so similarly, the local input points are assigned, the scores are calculated, and then we sort each of the projects in the 14 buckets in descending order and select the projects till the funding runs out. So I do want to stress that in the division needs category, projects essentially need local support or local input to be selected for funding. So as long as they have that, they have a good chance of selected for funding, as long as there's funding available. So what type of data is used in the scoring process? For the majority of highway projects, we use a combination of congestion data that looks at the traffic volumes on the roadway compared to the amount of vehicles that the roadway can carry. One thing I like to stress is that it's not just an annual average traffic volume, it's actually accounts for peak seasonal factors. So obviously here that will make a big difference for projects in this area, but it's not just on the coast where you think you might have it. It's in the urban areas too, around some of the shopping centers around Christmas time, for example, in the mountains in October. A lot of folks go out to there to see for leaf season. So peak ADT, we have what we call a peak ADT factor that's calculated for all projects across the state. We look at a benefit cost, which looks like the benefits of the project over a 10-year time period, along with the safety benefits that the project is expected to provide, divided by the cost of the project to the department. And that cost can be lowered if a project, if tolls are part of that project or an area wishes to provide a local contribution. Safety looks at existing crashes and the safety benefits of the project. Again, we're stressing safety. It's in 2 of the different criteria here. Freight looks at truck volumes and truck percentages. Economic competitiveness looks at the expected change in the economic activity in the area over a 10-year period. And accessibility connectivity looks at opportunities to connect rural areas to where jobs are. And so these are the percentage weights that are used in the scoring criteria. Economic competitiveness and accessibility connectivity are only eligible in the categories where you see the weights based on the law. So we actually have a work group of professional staff made up of representatives from the department, MPOs, RPOs, and other local advocacy groups that help come up with the criteria and weights. And they make recommendations to the Board of Transportation, who ultimately approve the criteria scoring weights. So that's kind of an overview of the prioritization process and the STIP. Now I'm going to talk specifically about the Mid-Currituck Bridge. This was evaluated as a new bridge across the Currituck Sound in what we call prioritization 3.0, and this was submitted for evaluation, I believe, in 2014 at a cost of a little over $400 million at the time, with $173 million estimated of what we call STI dollars that come from state and federal revenues. It scored high enough for funding in the division needs category. Here, in the division needs category, the RPO assigned 100 points. The division did not, but it still scored high enough because there was enough funding in that category. And so ultimately this project made it into the 2016-2025 STIP as a toll project, understanding that $173 million is the maximum amount of STI dollars that would be used on this project. And when I say STI dollars, dollars that are subject to this prioritization process is a combination of state and federal funds. So that's kind of the history of the project. So where are we today? So when the department evaluates toll projects, we look at it, a traditional toll project that's managed by the Turnpike Authority or a public-private partnership, also known as a P3. And so we do what we call a comparative analysis. And so these are the numbers that was presented as a result of this comparative analysis to the RPO at its February meeting. You can see the cost is roughly the same between a traditional toll project and a P3. There are slight differences in the amount of contingencies that a traditional toll project versus a P3 would provide. But in overall, the project ranges in cost from $1.1 to $1.2 billion. And from that, generally, we're expecting somewhere around $200 million in toll revenue to help offset that cost, leaving without any STI dollars, the project would cost somewhere between $900 to $1 billion. You then subtract the $173 million that was allocated to the project as a result of the third round of prioritization P3, and that brings the funding gap essentially down to between $700 and $830 million. So that's where we are today. And that's the challenge, is that gap is extremely large. And with that, because that gap is large, the project is not financially feasible without additional funding to help us make up that gap. So that's the unfortunate predicament we are in with this project at this time. So where do we go from here? And this is a decision that the RPO may consider tomorrow. Option one is the status quo, no change. The department will continue to work through legal challenges that is facing this bridge right now. The department will continue to seek additional alternative funds, such as federal grants. Over the last several years, the department has applied for several grant opportunities through the federal government, but unfortunately has not received one. But this does mean that if there is no change, the project will continue to tie up that $173 million in Division 1, which means that those funds can't be used for any other project. It's allocated to this project that's essentially on hold right now because of the legal challenges. And then so in the bigger picture, ultimately without additional funds, the project cannot move forward to right-of-way acquisition and construction because of that large funding gap. The second option, and this gets a little bit more technical, is that the RPO and the division can agree to change the project to what we call funded for preliminary engineering only, which means the project is still on the STIP. It's still working. The department will continue to work through the legal challenges. Department will continue to seek additional alternative funds such as grants, as I mentioned earlier. But the opportunity here is that the project would then compete for funding in the current round of prioritization, again known as P8.0. And since it's eligible for statewide mobility, Region A, and Division 1 funds, it would have 3 opportunities to receive funding. What that $173 million that's currently allocated to the project would then be used on projects selected through prioritization 8.0, strictly in the Division 1 category. So that would free up $173 million for essentially new projects coming out of the prioritization process. However, as I mentioned, the scores for P8 are going to be released at the end of next month. So we need a decision by the end of this week by the RPO if this project is going to compete in prioritization 8.0. Great. So what are some potential outcomes here? The project scores high enough for funding in any of those 3 categories. If so, the project will likely be scheduled for preliminary engineering only until those legal challenges are resolved. The project would then automatically recompete in the subsequent round of prioritization, P9. If the project does not score high enough for funding, or funding is not available in those categories, then the department will need to decide how to bring preliminary engineering, including permitting, to a logical stopping point and how to handle legal challenges. The project would need to be submitted by the RPO to compete in P9. So one thing I'd like to stress here is that the department is not advocating for a particular path forward. We're presenting the information. Ultimately, this would be for the RPO to consider. One thing I will stress is that if the project does not score high enough in, let's say, the statewide category or the regional category, the RPO then could assign points at the division level just to hopefully have it score high enough to keep the project funded for preliminary engineering only. So the department did conduct an analysis to see how the project would have scored based on the previous prioritization cycle. In the statewide category, it likely would not score high enough for funding. It ranked 206 out of 590. To give you an idea, and only the top 20, there was only enough funding for the top 22 projects. In Region A, it has a much better chance for funding, where it would have ranked 15 out of 156, presuming the RPO and division assigned 100 points to the project. At the end of the day, funding will still remain a challenge for this project. So as I mentioned a second ago, the project's not likely to score high enough in the statewide category. It's competing against those highly congested routes throughout the state, such as I-85, I-77, I-40, I-26, and so forth. Just for information, Region A is the smallest region by population, again, receiving only 8% of the funds. For comparison's sake, Region C, which is Divisions 5 and 6, stretching from the central part of the state, stretching from Virginia to South Carolina, includes the Raleigh and Fayetteville areas, that it has over 20% of the funds. The Charlotte region, Region E, also has over 20% of the funds. And that stretches from Charlotte all the way to Chatham County, just outside Jordan Lake and Chapel Hill. Region A, for all projects, including bridge and safety projects, only had $800 million over for that entire 10-year period, which is roughly the same amount of funds Division 1 had for all projects. So even once you consider the entire budget for a division or the region, it is still less than the cost of this bridge, unfortunately. So just to summarize here, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, the project is not financially feasible without additional funds. We know it's a good transportation project, but the biggest challenge is funding at this point. And so the 2 options being presented for the RPO to consider, if they so choose, is the status quo, in which case the project will continue to tie up funds in the division needs category. And ultimately, additional funds will still be needed. Or the second option is the RPO and the division can agree to have the project go through the prioritization process where there's additional opportunities for funding. And that would free up the $173 million for other projects. But again, I'd like to stress that the department's not advocating for a particular path forward. We just want to present the information to you all and then ultimately to the RPO. So happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thanks, David. I'll start out if that's okay. What my plan is to allow council to ask questions, and then we'll go from there. So I'll kick it off. So back in 2014, the project ranked high enough to get funding.
Mhm.
And the funding was allocated in 2016, as I understand it. And it was allocated at the amount of $173 million. So it's been sitting there since 2016. That's 10 years. Where's the interest?
So with toll projects, when they are submitted through the prioritization process, whatever amount of STI dollars that are allocated to the project, that's the amount that's typically held for that project moving forward. So I don't know that we necessarily tack on interest for add interest to that 173 million. One thing I'd like to say is that generally speaking, as a department, we've experienced substantial cost increases for all projects throughout the state, particularly from 2020 on. This project is no different. This project has grown in cost just like every other project, but because it is a toll project, that 173 million is kind of held static at that point.
So the interest just went somewhere else, I guess is your answer. Because
We
I
don't-
assume it's held in some sort of interest-bearing account.
The department spends the money that
So
we're
it
given
just was spent on something else.
on other projects throughout
All
the
right,
state. Yeah.
so speaking of money spent on this project, you haven't mentioned how much money has been spent on this project. The number I have read in published reports is like $60 million. Is that inaccurate?
Correct. It's about
So
60.
$60 million down the road over 10 years towards this project. And you, essentially, the scenario you're describing is, the only thing I could come up with is, you know, something along the lines of a Hunger Games scenario. You know, you have two counties who are benefiting from this bridge, Currituck and Dare. Then you have another 8 counties in the district, another, however many other counties there are in the district. But everybody gets a vote, so there's one vote for each county. So you're setting up essentially, you know, why would the other counties not want, you know, access to the $173 million? I can't imagine a logical reason for them to not want it to be anything close to status quo. So the question I have then is, why can't the money be split in a different way? Why does it have to be 173 million or zero? What's wrong with some of the money being allocated to the rest of the district who clearly has needs that have met y'all's priority ranking? So why is it all or nothing?
So that $173 million is subject to the STI law, and essentially it would go back into the hopper, and then projects would be selected based on how they score in P8, and that's per
So essentially,
law.
it wouldn't meet the legal process, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Council, does anyone else have questions for Mr. David Wasserman?
I have two.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
How did the Alligator River Bridge get funded?
Alligator River Bridge.
And how long did that take?
Al-
Yeah,
Alligator River Bridge.
it's part of the region, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
that is, but that was
Sure.
selected through a different process. So you saw, on one of the earlier slides, you saw I mentioned bridge projects as something of a type of project that gets selected.
Yeah.
We have a separate process for selecting bridge projects. We had the Alligator River Bridge project was selected through a separate bridge replacement process, bridge replacement selection process.
Okay.
It also was funded with a $110 million infra grant. Was it infra grant? Yeah,
Which
federal
grant?
grant.
Okay,
So that helped with that,
Yeah.
the cost of that project.
okay, all right. That seemed to come about out of nowhere when it came about. The other thing is you have input into how STI works. Has there been any thought, and of course, this is a policy change, you can't fix it right now, in how much revenue is contributed to the projects by county, I think Currituck and Dare are pretty high tax counties. Sales tax revenue that comes in annually, not just during the season, but annually when you figure it out. I mean, it's a process that I don't know, could go into how you allocate how that's going to happen. Because I think during the season, Currituck and Dare are in the top 5 counties in the state from May to October in sales tax collections. That's not a bad place to be, even though we might have the lowest population. We need to take that into, I think that should be taken into consideration as we think about how we fund these kind of things, because it's not going to stop. Currituck continues to explode up there. Dare is, we're Dare and we're working on it. Okay. But it's going to change. It's got to change. And I would think Alligator River, sure, it's for hurricane evacuation. I'm sure that was used here. This up here, when you started up here, hurricane evacuation starts 5 days before they even think there's going to be a hurricane. And I mean, folks coming south have to come all the way down. I mean, that. And then one last thing, they go all over the town on the weekends here. Okay, just drive down South Dogwood and see if you would want to drive down South Dogwood. Just in your car, pull a trailer down there, which a lot of folks do, and everything else. With everything all going over, and Southern Shores, of course, owns the roads. We have to fix them. We just need some help. Okay, those are my comments.
Paul?
I have a question. I'm going to ask you questions that I've been asked by people who live in Southern Shores, who are understandably upset that after 10 years of planning and all the litigation that Southern Shores has involved itself in, and all the traffic that they've put up with, and the interruption of their weekend life for weeks and weeks every year, and quite frankly, the inability of emergency services to get to people. I live on Ocean Boulevard. I'm going to have traffic. I don't gripe about the traffic, but if I lived on Sea Oats or any of those cut through, I'd be upset. And I'd be very concerned if I had a heart attack or needed some emergency services, or my house were burning down, because you can't get into the interior of this town during these changeover dates. It's just impossible. So a question I've been asked is, we have some state funding. You have looked for federal sources, and those are just not there for whatever reason. What about private investment?
That was one of the considerations for the public-private partnership. David, I don't know if you'd like to call on David Roy to add a little bit to that.
That's what the comparative analysis.
Can you go to the podium? Sorry, we have to record this. Sorry. Speak up, please.
So that's what the comparative analysis looked at. It compared a traditional toll delivery through the Turnpike Authority compared against a public-private partnership where you would enter into an agreement with a private developer or private concessionaire to design, construct, and operate the bridge. So we have evaluated a P3 alternative, and unfortunately, there's still a sizable funding gap in that scenario as well.
And to a number of people, the toll schedules that we've seen, which provide the basis for this financial model, seem pretty low. How is that toll schedule calculated?
I've never been in a room where somebody says the tolls were too low on a facility across the state. So this is a new one for me.
Well, if I were sitting in traffic for hours and still had hours to go to get to my vacation rental, I would pay a toll.
Understandable. So the way we look at tolling is we engage a traffic and revenue consultant who provides a long-range forecast that includes value of time analysis, socioeconomic growth assumptions, all of that, puts it into their model, and develops a sensitivity curve, which basically says, based on stated preferences, identified value of time, we believe this is the optimal toll rate structure for this project. So obviously, for this particular project, it varies by season, peak period, off peak. Also day, weekdays would have different toll rates would likely have different toll rates compared against a Saturday in July versus a Tuesday in February. So obviously, because we are financing this project, need to obtain credit ratings, investment grade credit ratings. We need loan from US DOT. By nature, those assumptions are slightly conservative. So I think nobody involved in this process would disagree that likely the project could support somewhat higher toll rates. But also at some point, there's diminishing returns, right? Once you get to a point, the toll rates become so high that people make alternate choices and choose to take a different route. So that traffic
Folks, can we let the gentleman speak? Thank you.
that traffic and revenue forecast is, I think it has been provided. If it's not on the website, we can certainly make sure everybody has access to it and a copy of it.
Well, a comment a resident made to me is that so many of our visitors are from New York and New Jersey, and they pay enormous tolls up there to go through little bridges just to get into the city. But I sit on the ARPO. I don't vote on it, but I get to listen, and I've been on it for a number of years now. ARPO, which is this regional group, has kept this bridge as a priority for years. This was just kind of announced to everybody, in February, I think, that the funding might be an issue. And at that point, for lack of a better analogy, a sort of Hunger Games scenario has been set up so that $173 million is being dangled in front of 8 other counties. They've had this as a priority at least since 2016. So tomorrow they vote, and that's it?
So again, if the RPO chooses not to move forward with the project, or excuse me, no change, status quo, 173 million will stay allocated to this project. If they choose to have this project go through P8, then there's an opportunity for potentially more money for this that could be allocated to the project, depending on how it scores in the other funding categories. There's, as I mentioned earlier, this project could be selected again for funding in the division needs category to keep the project alive. I think the biggest challenge is that $173 million is not enough. And we're trying to think of opportunities to close that funding gap. And so from the department standpoint, based on how transportation funding works in the state, the best opportunity is to have this project selected for funding either statewide or regional and or the division needs category. So again, that's the information being shared with the RPO. It's the RPO's decision along jointly with the division to figure out how to potentially move forward with this project. Again, we know it's an important project. We're not disagreeing with that. It's just how do we fund it, given that that funding gap is so large.
Okay. Rob.
In your larger study, one thing I did not see covered was the whole notion of fire on the Outer Banks. Lahaina in Hawaii was wiped out, and that's an island, and with a appropriate wind came and just burned it to the ground. End of Long Island has had a bunch of wildfires. Even in Brooklyn, New York, you've had a bunch of wildfires. Yes, you've addressed the hurricane issue and 5 days notice for getting folks off the Outer Banks, and I think we do a pretty good job at that. But if you get a wildfire here, it's a classic choke point. You're not going to be able to get folks off. I've heard that from a couple of different citizens. So it's another kind of health and safety issue that I think somehow needs to be addressed in this. And it's just not hurricanes that we have to worry about and or, local floods. But the state, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is in a drought situation, especially certain regions. And the chance for fire is huge.
Thanks, Rob. Matt?
I just have 2 questions. If it goes through P8, you're saying that with your scenario with P7, it's not going to score high enough in the statewide mobility?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
If it goes through P8, from your scenario of P7, it will not score high enough in statewide mobility.
I would not anticipate it scoring high enough. in
And then the
statewide
other
mobility.
two buckets don't have enough 10-year funds to do the project either way.
The other two buckets, depending on how it scores, we do not have our funding availability yet or our budget yet for the other two
So
categories.
if it did meet like the regional bucket, I mean, how would that work? I mean, if the funds aren't, there isn't enough 10-year funds to do it.
It could be potentially funded out of both buckets too. There
Okay.
might be some combination thereof, but it would have to score high enough in both buckets.
But they both have basically 80 million. I mean, all right, I think I understand. So the hope would be for federal funding if it was in that.
Probably one of the best chances for this project to score high is to have some sort of regional impact funding, maybe some in combination with some division needs funding and a federal grant.
Is there a project of this scale in that in North Carolina that has received that level of offset federal funding?
The largest grant to date, to my knowledge, is the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge down in Wilmington that received a $242 million grant. It's a similar size project, costing about $1 billion.
Generally, federal discretionary grants are limited to 50% of project cost, and usually they don't get quite that. So it would, as David mentioned, likely take a combination of regional, potentially division, and a federal grant to close that gap completely.
And those have been sought for this bridge thus far.
I'm sorry?
Have those been sought for this bridge thus far?
We have sought a discretionary grant every cycle since 2017 on this project, yes.
And it keeps getting not given.
It is not obviously received one yet. I will say in our debrief sessions, it has been received well. Many cycles. One obvious kind of red flag has been the litigation. By federal law, grant funds need to be obligated by a date certain. So obviously, if you have active litigation on a project where there's a risk that those funds couldn't be obligated in time, that makes it challenging for a grant to be awarded.
Gotcha. So with the largest grant, Cape Fear, that was 200 million. It's 173. That still doesn't close the gap. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What would be the process for, we maintain about 37 roads or 37 miles of roads. Many miles of those roads are beaten up by this tourist traffic that we're trying to mitigate by the bridge. Does Division One region or I guess the region of the division funds ever reach down into maintaining town roads or providing backup funding for town roads? And what would be the process to seek that?
To use those division needs funds, those have to be used on state maintained roads.
They cannot be like a grant to a town to,
Correct.
how would a town surrender the roads to the state?
That would be a conversation you'd have with Ronnie if in the division to see if if the division's willing to take ownership of some of the town roads.
Are there like width requirements and shoulder and all, or is it just a
I
right of way
can't,
acquiescence?
I can't speak to that. I have to ask Ronnie to address that.
What law restricts that there has to be, the funding has to go to an NCDOT road? Is that a state law? Or is that part of the SDI law?
Part of the STI law, go back to the eligibility slides. So STI dollars have to be spent on so these are the in the highway category here. These are the types of the facilities where the state dollars can be spent. And you see in the division needs category, secondary roads are eligible for division needs funds and only federal aid eligible local roads. So there may be some roads not on the state system that are maintained by a municipality that are eligible for federal aid funds. Those would be eligible for division needs funds as well.
Would like roads that are already eligible for PAL bill money fit that bucket?
Powell bill is separate.
Okay. All right. That was the end of my question.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to give our Senator Bobby Hanig a moment to speak to us or ask questions. Yes, take as many moments as you'd like, sir. Thank you for being with us. Don't be afraid, gentlemen.
We can talk because I have questions. And forgive me, my notes just got destroyed, so bear with me. Madam Mayor, you had mentioned there were only 2 counties that are really affected by this bridge. That is nowhere near the truth. Pasquotank County, Camden County, Terrell County, Hertford County, Hyde County, all are affected by this bridge. People travel to and from work to get to Corolla every weekend in the middle of the week, and have been doing so for 30 years. So it isn't just 2 counties that are affected by this bridge. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit, so bear with me. Last week when we were talking in Currituck, a Currituck deputy, we were talking about tolls. A Currituck deputy had to go to New York for training. He spent $260 on a rental car and spent $283 on tolls. I guess my question is, when we're talking about this toll process, have we done any type of research or polling for folks in the Northeast, asking them if they can save 5 hours, how much that they'd be willing to pay for that?
Yeah, so as part of the traffic and revenue forecast, they do what's known as stated preference surveys, and those are typically done in the locations of the facility. So it would be, based on people on the island. I do joke that they need to go out on Saturday over Virginia Day or Wright Memorial and sit there after they have screaming kids in the car for 10 hours, and maybe they'd get a different answer. But certainly it is, based on their expertise across the country and stated preference surveys that have been conducted within the region.
Right, and is the question asked if you had a preference?
I would have to look exactly what.
If we can get that data, that would be really great, because it's a pretty pertinent questions that need to be asked in there. One of the council members mentioned public safety. I'm going to give you a firsthand account. At one point, I was a partner at Brindley Beach Vacations in Corolla, and we had a catastrophic fire. We had a catastrophic fire at our office building in Corolla, burnt to the ground. It was a Friday afternoon, middle of the summer or beginning of the summer. A lot of folks couldn't get here, and a lot of folks that could have helped on the mainland could not get here in time. If that bridge was there, we might have still had part of that building left. So that was a 22,000 square foot building that burnt to the ground because we couldn't get apparatus and couldn't get help up there in time. Just for the back of your brain there. The scoring process, we talked briefly on Friday, and some of these are repeat questions, folks, so bear with me, but I haven't got quite the answers yet. So the scoring process, I asked about the growth factor. With Currituck expanding as fast as it is, with Dare County expanding as fast as it is, multiple businesses coming into the northeastern corridor, and I don't remember, or I don't think I got a clear enough answer on if that's factored into the process when you're talking about numbers. And also I had asked about the folks that are routed, if they're coming from Raleigh or different parts of the state, to come from the south end. So those numbers aren't counted, folks. When someone drives from Raleigh, instead of coming through Currituck, they may drive through the south end, but they still have to get to Corolla. So from what I understood, those numbers are not being counted in their numbers, and they're pretty significant numbers. So I had asked about that, but and forgive me because Ronnie said he sent me an email this morning, but I was out working, so I didn't get a chance to read it. So I don't know what all answers you gave me. So I apologize for asking.
It was really related to grant applications.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'll get to that one too. So the reason I'm asking these questions, especially, is it Ethan? Is your name Ethan? I'm sorry. The reason I'm asking these questions is because you're going to vote on this. And I want to make you aware of some things that I don't think in the original presentation to the ARPO that these things were put out to y'all. So I want to make sure that when y'all get your presentation tomorrow, that all this information is put in there so you can make the right decision. In 2024, we had a grant application in, and it was stated here today, and it was stated last Friday that one of the preliminary feedback was that if there's litigation going on then they won't qualify. Well, when this grant was applied for, there was no litigation. And I think that's what you responded to me about.
In 23 and 24.
Correct.
There was no.
There was no litigation. Now there is, so that puts us in a bind, of course. But in that application process, Senator Tillis, Senator Budd, Congressman Murphy, and Congressman Davis were not notified of this grant application. So they had no opportunity to give a letter of support for this grant application. Congressman Murphy is the senior member of Ways and Means, the most powerful committee in Congress. He has a little bit of say about what goes on up there. So I find that very, 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 very disturbing. Again, if that's preliminary reason why it wasn't granted. I know there's criteria, but it's my understanding that was a pretty quick no on the application process. So that's bothersome to me, to say the least. And I don't know if you answered that in that email.
It's addressed somewhat in the email.
Okay.
That might need a little further discussion.
I'll let you know. Let me see. Traffic redirected. How long was the Wilmington Bridge project being talked about? And the Wilmington Bridge project just is being built for the $1 billion.
The Cape Fear Memorial
Yes, sir.
Bridge.
Yes, sir.
How long has Cape Fear Memorial Bridge been in the prioritization? Submitted?
The Cape Fear Memorial Bridge was evaluated and scored high enough for funding in prioritization 7.0.
Which is when?
That was, it was 2 years ago. This project first appeared in the STIP in 2024 to 2033 STIP. Right? Yeah. So, or actually, excuse me, the 2026 to 2035 STIP.
That is a replacement of an existing bridge.
Right, and I understand the process is different, but this was in the STIP for 1 year.
The gap funding,
Was,
the state STI funds required for that project are only 85 million. So that's tolling, the proposal would be to toll the replacement bridge, which would still need legislative change for that to actually move forward. But tolling of a bridge that sees 60,000 vehicles a day generated sufficient revenue where the gap funding or the state contribution was negligible.
okay. Still, 1 year. Y'all got that right? 1 year. Ethan, you get that? 1 year. Just a little sidebar on that. And I don't quote me on the year, but around the year 1923, if you go over to the Register of Deeds office in Elizabeth City, before they built Shortcut Road, the preliminary plan showed Shortcut Road going all the way to the Sound, and that's where the bridge went. Wouldn't that be cool if we actually did that? Politics got in the way. Again, when we're talking about economic impacts and traffic, so, and it's a little anecdotal, but it hits home, I think, is the folks here in Dare County, especially the southern end going through Duck, are completely captive to their homes on weekends. The folks in Currituck County are completely captive to their homes on weekends because of the traffic. Folks that live in Hyde County or Terrell County have to leave at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to beat the traffic to get to work on time. I mean, there's a lot more impacts that are a reason for this bridge. And, when we're talking about public safety, yeah, basically it's mostly a Saturday and a Sunday, but when apparatus and equipment can't get through Duck because it's raining that day and traffic's at a standstill, folks can come from Currituck County to assist. And we simply don't have that ability. They can come from Currituck County and get to the northern end of Duck faster than Southern Shores can get through Duck. That's how important this bridge is. Yes, it's important, and we do a much better job. Mr. Nelson, did you say that about the evacuations? And we do a better job because we have more check-ins on Fridays and we just have a better, things work a little bit better, but it's still it's still an issue for us. So let's talk about the options. And Ethan, I want you to make sure that, and I know that they will tomorrow because I asked them to on Friday, to help you to fully understand that when you talk about the two options, option one, the $173 million stays in there. If that $173 million goes to option two, that bridge is dead. That bridge is not going to go forward. We spent $63 million, and I know it hasn't been over the last 2 years, but over the last 10 years on engineering, lawsuits, you name it. There's always going to be lawsuits. You work through them, whatever. We're just going to let that money go away. We're going to waste $63 million of taxpayer money. To me, that's absurd. Absolutely absurd. We talk about the 8%, and this is just a little bit off the bridge, but it's important about the bridge. You know, Division 1 gets 8% out of whichever bucket. I can't remember the buckets. My notes got messy. I can't remember the buckets, but we get 8%. And the urban counties get 22, 30, 35%, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean for our future? What does that tell you about our future and what's going to happen to Northeastern North Carolina? It isn't going to change because we're never going to get the funding to build the roads we need to bring the economic development here. And when we do get the economic development, we have a situation like we have coming through Southern Shores and coming through Currituck and coming through all of Nags Head. So something's got to give there. I know some people that can make that change, but if we can get that done or not, I don't know. I don't know if we can or not. In 2016, we scored high. In 2014, we scored high enough in the STIP to spend $411 million on a bridge. When we got to COVID, it got up to about $650 million. We had a funding deficit then in 2020, 2021. Why is it now in 2026? It's an urgent, and we got to make a decision and whether we're going to build this bridge or not. That deficit has been there for 10 years. Why is it now that the deficit is just coming to the surface? Did you answer that in the email? Okay. So I'm asking again. So, you know, that gives me pause. I may have gotten a little cynical over the last 10 years, but things happen in Raleigh for a reason. And I'd love to know what that reason is. I'd love for someone to tell me why we've had a funding deficit that was too much to overcome for so long, and now we have a funding deficit that is too much to overcome, and we're going to take that $173 million, which Ethan, in 2014, all of the ARPO counties agreed to put that $173 million in there for that bridge. That was an agreement that every county signed off for. I want to make sure that when they give their presentation tomorrow, because I can't be there, I have to be in Raleigh. Anyone want to go for me? I have to be in Raleigh, but I want to make sure that that's presented to all the ARPO members, that this is an agreement that was made by these counties because they all understand the economic impacts of what's going to happen when that bridge gets built. You know, we're consistently restrained from our growth, not so much, and it's probably a bad analogy for a politician to say, but you know, we have tons of people that can serve the fries. What we don't have are good quality management people. The ones we do have are mostly homegrown. They start serving the fries and then they move up to, you know, the cashier or whatever, or the property manager. You know, when I was in the property management business, every one of our managers were homegrown. They started out as a reservationist, and then they became a property manager down the road. So we are limited in our growth by the amount of talented people we have to run our businesses. You open that bridge and economic development will boom from there. It isn't that we're going to get a mad rush of people up there and it's going to be overcrowded because there's nowhere for them to park. People find that out really quick. So that isn't the issue. But a good quality vacation is a better good quality vacation when you have the right people managing the process. And we simply don't have that. And that, once we have that, we pull talent from Tidewater, we pull talent from Elizabeth City, from all over the region of good, quality, educated people that can help our businesses grow and create a better vacation experience. And you see people that plan for that all across the country, across the world. These folks, that's what they're trained to do. And they come and they do it, and it is night and day. When you see someone that has managed that for so long and managed the process of getting the education to do what we do, it's a huge difference. But we don't have that here because we just don't have the talent. Sorry, a little sidebar there. So again, option one, the $173 million stays in there. And we keep applying for the funding for it. I do have another question. How many grants have we applied for since 2014? Do y'all have that number?
We've applied in every cycle since 2017. So
Okay.
there's 1 or 2 years where there
A
was
cycle is 1 year?
Typically, there were
Okay.
a couple years where there was not a discretionary grant cycle,
Okay.
but like 2025 did not have one. But every year the program has been available, we've applied.
Okay. And the current lawsuit we have now is for the DEQ permit, is that correct?
Yes, the CAMA permit.
Okay, and has that actually been filed?
It has.
Okay.
It's working through OAH right now.
Okay, thank you. So I got sidetracked. So at one point, we had $411 million that the state was going to pay to have this bridge built.
Well, 173 million plus the toll revenue
Right.
made that 411, which was the cost of
Okay.
the project at the time.
Okay. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. I don't want to have to come back up here. I would invite the work group that makes this decision to come down here on a Saturday or Sunday. I'll spring for lunch. And if we do, well, they won't get to duck until about 4. So I might even throw in beers, just to get them here. Because it makes a difference. If you ask people that you're polling the question of, okay, would you do it? The next question is, have you done it? Because I'd do it once, maybe twice. Yeah, they had a bad day. Second time, there's no chance. It's unbelievable. And when we say 4 hours, that's on a good day. That's on a day like today. When it's raining, it's 6 or 7. Throw in a couple wrecks, burning building, who knows, right? Pedestrians, those dang electric bikes. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that out there to y'all. So again, I'm stressing the importance of the bridge. There's more to it than dollars and cents. That's the bottom line. There's more to it than dollars and cents. And there's agreements and there's a need. And for this to not get funded is just beyond me. And I think that's all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Hannig. I'm certainly happy to be wrong about saying only 2 counties benefit. So yeah, the region does benefit in so many ways. It just seems like it's us against them. So maybe that's me personalizing it. And again, I was going to ask the question, why now, just like you did, because really nothing's changed for the last 5 or 6 years. And yet here we are. Big vote tomorrow. And really what we're asking for is just one more cycle. That's really what we're asking for. Just leave it in there for one more cycle so we can have some time to get some other funding. That's what we're talking about. Monica, did you want to take a moment to speak, or are you good?
I think I've heard a lot of, and I just really implore everyone from Duck, and Duck is so supportive of the bridge, as is Dare County, and Currituck County. We have the will of the entire 2-county region, and all the towns are in support of this.
Thanks, Monica. Tess, did you want to take a minute to say something?
No, I certainly hear everything, and living here, I know what it's like on Saturday because I live over in Kitty often I can see, and, it's definitely a And we said, you know, the Department of Transportation is talking about it this morning, and as Mr. Wasserman has said, we know. So we just need to continue to work.
Thanks, Tess. At this time, I'm going to go off script just a little bit. I know there's a bunch of folks here who are extremely interested in the Mid-Currituck Bridge and where we are today with that bridge. So I'd like to recognize two of you to come up very briefly and tell us your thoughts a minute or so. Jerry Sullivan, can you come up?
Hi, I'm Jerry Sullivan. I live at 31 10th Avenue, been at Southern Shores. I've been involved with the bridge since the start of the project, 2002. Guys, that's 24 years ago. Do we support it? The towns of Duck, Southern Shores, and the community of Currituck all got together and we formed an organization. We stayed in place for 14 years. And then we thought the project was going to get done. We're now, 12 years later? So when we hear these projects go on the docket and they're on for a year and then they're building the bridge, it's very, very frustrating for you, for us. I could give you stories of, about the traffic, et cetera. I'll give you one example. In 2010, my husband went out to get the newspaper at 7:30 in the morning. When he came back, he had a heart attack. It was what they called a widowmaker. EMS got there, they life-flighted him out, and fortunately he lived. You know why? He had his heart attack in April. What if it had been June, July, or August? Second thing I'm going to mention is with gas prices what they are, maybe traffic won't be so bad this summer, right? Because who wants to go 40 miles sitting in traffic idling to get there? And by the way, 4 hours is probably very, very short. I have gone to the store to get a gallon of milk on the weekend and had to sit in traffic through the back of the town at Southern Shores for an hour and a half. And I've heard stories of 2 hours. I've heard stories of people going other places and sitting for hours just so they could get home. And then finally, my last comment is, the cost of the bridge doubled. Why didn't the cost of the tolls double? Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Jim LeBlanc?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be very quick. Jim LeBlanc. We're at 179 South Dogwood. Paula and Bobby mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of numbers being tossed around here. Bobby mentioned and closed out his remarks by saying it's beyond some of these numbers. I want to go back to the public safety aspect of this. This is where it gets human. This is where it gets very, very personal. And we have excellent first responders in this town. Why we're making their job harder when it's already a tough job, when there's an option sitting in front of us that could alleviate some of that harshness, whether it's a medical emergency, structural fires, fire alarms, they are working at a disadvantage during certain periods of this time. And why there's an option here that could alleviate that, I don't understand why we wouldn't go forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Paula, one last thing.
I've been really struck throughout this conversation at hearing nothing's changed. One thing that's changed, according to my new best friend, AI, is that there are now close to 5,000 homes in Corolla, and the summertime population there is 50,000 people. Now, there is some point at which it is simply unsafe to have that many people that cannot be taken out of this area in a timely manner. And I think that's going to have serious long-term impacts on tourism, on our property values. And without this bridge, I think we are headed in bad. And what's really disturbing is we're never going to fit into this STIP calculation. We're not a rural county. We are a coastal county. with a very fragile environment. We're very susceptible to natural disasters. And you've got 50,000 people stuck up in Kerala. And if a hurricane, if you don't get them out within 5 days, how do you get them out in 2 days? And still get out the people in Southern Shores?
So one last time, we're just asking for one more, for the folks tomorrow that are voting, not that they're listening, but perhaps they are. We're just asking for one more budget cycle because we know that that's our only chance of getting this bridge. So we'll end with that and we'll take a brief recess before we go on with the rest of our meeting. We'll come back in like 10 minutes. Thank you. Now we're on. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone's time, patience, et cetera. First, we'll move on with our meeting agenda items, our staff reports. We'll start out with our Deputy Town Manager and Planning Director, Mr. Wes Haskett. Good morning, Wes.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Hope y'all are doing well. With respect to March permits, there were 62 permits. They consisted of 17 zoning permits, 22 building permits, 21 trade permits, 1 lot disturbance stormwater management permit, and 1 lot disturbance demolition permit. The total amount of fees collected by the Planning and Code Enforcement Department in March was $19,572.68. With respect to code enforcement, in March, there was 1 warning citation mailed for the accumulation of rubbish and abandoned personal property, and 1 warning citation was mailed for a setback violation. With respect to the planning board, they will be meeting this month, April 20th at 5 o'clock here in the Pitt Center. They will be considering the town code amendment request submitted by the town to amend the town's wastewater systems requirements in Chapter 32 utilities. And they will also consider a zoning text amendment application submitted by Dan Osman to amend Town Code Section 36-202D4 and 36-202D5 to establish a 10-foot side yard setback requirement and a 20-foot rear yard setback requirement for pool equipment, pool sheds, accessory structures up to 150 square feet, and HVAC equipment in the RS1 zoning district. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Next, we'll hear from our police chief, Chief Cole. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mayor, members of council. The March 2026 report, let's see, as you can see, we had 1,529 calls for service. Some of that breakdown, officers conducted 736 business checks where they actually physically shake and rattle the doors. Let's see, we had 152 traffic stops. Officers out of those 152 issued 45 written citations and another 99 warning citations. Officers also conducted an extra 288 patrols. A lot of that was at the school. Under the incidents, which are the crimes reported, we had a total of 19. And as you can see the breakdown there, 10 were for drugs and drug equipment. We had 1 driving while intoxicated, some of the highlighted ones, and 3 were weapons related that also were associated with drugs. Under the criminal arrest, we had 15, 8 for the drug equipment and 9 for the other drugs, and then the 3 for the weapons. And then we've already covered the citations, and then we had 2 local ordinance violations, parking in the right-of-way, and we had 3 reportable motor vehicle accidents for March. Just a couple of other things. Hopefully, I will have an annual report for you all at the next council meeting. And we're also working on, we have 2 of our newest police officers that are out in field training right now are doing very well. But hopefully, we'll be able to introduce them to you at the next town council meeting. We are also participating again this year like we've done in the past several years. We're allowing Nest to park 2 of their ATVs at our garage, 1 for the north and 1 for the south, starting in May. Any questions, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
It looks like there's a little uptick in the drug charges, and I'm a little concerned about the weapons charges. Can you, I know it's hard to comment on those, but can you give us an idea?
There's an uptick, but part of it is we've got some new, young, very energetic officers that are out there. So be forewarned, they're doing a good job out there, but it's out there. It's just.
Are you saying the old guys aren't doing it anymore?
Just this old guy. The rest of the officers are doing a real good job, but it makes a big difference when you get new blood in there.
Yeah.
You know, with some of the more seasoned folks, And it lights a fire on them, so, and there's nothing wrong with that, so, yeah. I'll stand any of our officers up to anybody, so they do a heck of a job.
So what were the weapons?
Handguns,
Just handguns. I hate to say just handguns. but-
Just hand.
yeah, unfortunately.
It's great news about our two new officers getting their field training. It's been just an ongoing challenge. and
It still is, we're
it
still down
is,
a couple,
and-
but
and-
yeah,
But just to hear that we're making progress is fabulous. So thank you, Chief Cole.
thank you,
Appreciate you.
thank you.
Next, we'll hear from our fire chief, Chief Limbacher. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mayor, Council. So the fire department report for the month of March, pretty simply, 7 total fires, with 2 being brush fire, 3 structure fires, and 2 cooking incidents. 3 hazardous conditions, which amounted to gas leaks, 27 rescue calls, which the majority of those were due to trauma, falls, 11 public service, and the majority of those were lift assists for some of our elderly residents. Non-emergency, which included 5 alarms, 1 smoke investigation, and 3 canceled en route, for a total of 57. And that puts us a little ahead of last year. Last year at this time, we were 49 for much of March, so. Any questions? Summer's coming, so.
Thank you, Chief.
Well,
Appreciate
thank
you very much. Next, we'll hear from our town manager, Cliff Ogburn. Good morning, Cliff.
First, it's my honor to introduce our newest hire in a new position that was created this year, Mary Nichols. Mary is our public information officer and admin assistant. Mary comes from England. Now, she didn't move here from England for this job. She went to, she studied abroad though at UNCW, and through the summer she came, and through friends she met her husband. And they chose to live here, and I think they've lived here 10 years. Live in Kildover Hills and have 2 daughters. She comes to us from Outer Banks Internet, where she worked as a production manager. She has extensive knowledge and experience with building and managing websites, marketing and communications, managing digital communication, branding, social media, and customer relations. She's already hit the ground running. She's making relationships with people that walk in the front door. There's a project we're going to work on. She started to try and digitize some of the history that maybe we didn't know about, or pictures we didn't know about, stories we didn't know about, and she's starting to gather that as an opportunity for her to meet folks. She's already attended a Love the Beach, Respect the Ocean meeting, met with PIOs, and also attended the Government Education Access Channel Committee meeting. So we are real pleased to have her on board and look forward to working with her in the future. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome.
Can I? So forgive me for reading this next one, but I want to make sure I cover everything. This is an update on the East Dogwood Trail Road project. I received this from the town engineer this morning. The milling of the road is complete. The subgrade has been tested. The 8 inches of ABC stone base has been placed and rough graded. With the milling complete, there should be no further utility outages. We went through a rough week last week with the milling, other than the possibility of damage to an individual service drop that may be very shallow. At this time that we know of, there are no utility outages. So the next steps are forming and placing individual concrete driveway aprons, sidewalk repairs, fine grading of the 8-inch ABC stone, testing of the stone for thickness and compaction, placement of 7 inches of asphalt of different grades and different lifts, pavement markings, roadside grading, et cetera. So according to their Gantt chart they provided us from the beginning, the project is on schedule. We do expect some road access to be significantly limited during the placement of asphalt. But the goal is to keep Hickory open on that side so folks can drive around and vice versa, coming from the NC-12. Between now and then, the scheduled work is concrete driveway, sidewalk placement, fine grading, and the stone, which should provide ample vehicle access. But again, the end date, substantial completion date is May 8th, but we anticipate it being done before Memorial Day. Yes, sir.
I drove on that road yesterday. Nobody stopped me. So is it going to be smoothed out?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, because I mean, there was tons of gravel on there. And I mean, but there was one part where I thought, you know, and it had risen up. I'm like, my point is it going to be leveled?
Yeah,
I mean,
they've
that's
just
a better
placed it. I
term.
think they've just placed it. Now they got to go
All
back
right,
and
all
fine
right,
grade it.
Okay. I mean, because it was,
To Mark's point, can we try to, our sign that's up the front of the hill, can we
Yeah.
better coordinate that when it's, because right now it says road closed,
Okay.
but it's not closed.
Yeah.
And I
Yes,
think
sir.
it's causing people, when the road was closed last week, to ignore our sign and just keep plowing
All right.
through.
Yes, sir. We'll update
yeah.
that.
So, okay, it's going to
So
be
it was
flattened
open,
out.
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right, because I was going, hope they're not going to lay asphalt on here. Because okay, all right, never mind.
That's the finished surface, we check the budget.
Can you, thank you. These next two would just be easier to show you. The flat top tour, Mary's worked on putting a lot of this on our news page. You'll see the flat top tour is coming up. You can find this under news at our website. It's Saturday, April 25th from 1 to 5. If you click on this flyer right here, it'll go to their webpage. It'll show you the houses that are on the tour. It'll show you where to get tickets, give you some information about the houses. I think it lists pictures of each one of the houses. So just wanted to make everyone aware, just there's an opportunity where you can find the information and let you know the flat top tour is coming. It's once every 2 years. So this is the opportunity to see those houses. The other was I wanted to bring your attention to information about the resilient coastal community work and encourage everyone to go to the news site and click on this link. There's a website that's been created specifically for the Resilient Coastal Community Program. It gives background, it gives goals, key risk factors. There's an interactive map that folks can go on, and if they've dealt with stormwater issues, they can place a pin where they've encountered those stormwater issues. And some folks have already, done some of that. The other part of this is there's a survey that will help gather, if I can find it, might be at the bottom. I want to, where's the survey?
It's up at the top. Go up, over to the left of interactive map. Right, oh, back.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
So I want to encourage everyone that hasn't already to please go to the website and take this survey. There we go. It's a short survey. I think there's 18 questions. This helps the committee determine what they don't know, where the issues are that we don't know about, where the issues are that are local that people are dealing with. And it also asks questions about how stormwater impacts them, both on their property as well as trying to get around town. So I encourage everyone again to please go and take that survey. And that's my report.
Thank you, Cliff. Any questions for Cliff? Okay. Next, we'll hear from our town attorney, Philip Hornthal. Philip, anything for us to report?
No, ma'am. Nice to be with you all.
Thank you, sir. Next is general public comment. I think we have some people signed up. Some of them may have already left. Thank you. Is Mr. Roder here from 73 Gravy Pond? There he is. So in case you haven't done this before, public comment, there's these lights up there and you get 3 minutes. And when you see the yellow light, I think you have 1 minute left. And then when the red light goes off, there'll be a beep, beep. Anyway, we're glad you're here. Thank you.
My name is Hank Roder, residents here in Southern Shores at 73 Gravy Pond Lane. We share the sadness of the recent passing of former 2 consecutive term mayor of Southern Shores, Thomas Bennett. He held that elected post between 2013 and 2021. Tom and his wife ran a successful nursery and landscaping business in Vienna, Virginia, location of my permanent residence, where many years ago my son worked part-time for Tom, watering plants and trees while in high school. When my wife and I moved to our second home at 73 Gravy Pond Lane in Southern Shores, following our purchase there in 2011, I began to follow Southern Shores community activities such as Southern Shores Civic Association and Boat Club, Chickahawk Property Owners Association. I attended several Southern Shores Town Council meetings, and that is where in 2013, I observed Tom's leadership as mayor of the town. As several accounts verify, all was not smooth sailing for this first-term executive. However, even before his mayorship duties, Tom was an engaged volunteer citizen, managing various projects, including dredging of Southern Shores Canal System. Later, during his terms as mayor, Tom was significantly involved in developing East Dogwood and South Dogwood walking paths, replacement of the tall pine bridge, and most significantly, construction of the new fire department station. Tom's ability to work with town employees in the pursuit of town infrastructure projects, including beach nourishment, were clear indication of his steady hand on the tiller of fiscal responsibility for town administration. These many and varied accomplishments under Tom's tutelage over 2 consecutive terms as mayor of Southern Shores appear to me to be more than deserving of an honor for which I propose today: the naming of the Juniper Trinity Bridge, Southern Shores, in Tom's name. I appeal to the mayor and town council to approve this significant and deserving notoriety so that residents of Southern Shores and public in general may have a greater appreciation of Tom's endeavors as mayor and citizen of Southern Shores. With much appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Marcy Reese?
Mayor and members of the council, I'm Marcy Reese, and I'm here to represent the League of Women Voters of Dare County, here to present the 2026 Citizens Guide, your guide to community services. Complimentary copies of the guide, published by the League since 1988, are distributed annually to government and business offices throughout Dare County. It contains contact information for local, state, and national government agencies, voting information, emergency numbers, and a great deal more. I won't take a lot of your time since I believe that most of you are familiar with the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government and influences public policy through advocacy and education. Publishing this guide is part of our continued commitment to provide pertinent information to voters. Our group here in Southern Shores has produced 6,500 copies of this guide, and I am here to present the copies to Southern Shores. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you.
Next is Jerry Sullivan. You're done? Okay, thanks, Jerry. Next is Debbie Swick.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. My name is Debbie Swick. I live at 59 Deer Path Lane. I hope that you all received an email that I sent out recently regarding Section 26-12, storage of solid waste and trash. I'm going to read it briefly for the recording. Any unauthorized accumulation of solid waste on any lot, property, premises, public street, or other public or private place is prohibited. Failure of the owner or occupant after notice of violation to remove and correct any such unauthorized accumulation of solid waste shall be deemed a violation of this chapter or other chapters of this code. The reason for my request is to change the language. I am a big fan of yard work, love to be outside raking and bagging, and it's a wonderful service that is provided to us citizens twice a year. However, in reading this, it says that I cannot store said bags on my property once I have bagged up the debris to be picked up. It was brought to my attention by Mr. Haskett as somebody complained about the bags on my property, and I can promise you that prior to our bulk pickup, and it will be this Friday, there are bags accumulated on everybody's property. I would like to ask that the council consider a 45-day prior to bulk pickup date to allow these piles of bags to be kept neatly on their property. In reading this ordinance, it does not allow for any place on my property or premise or anywhere on my private property for these bags to be stored. It just doesn't make sense. And as somebody who likes to see neatness and, tidiness in personal properties, I'm a big fan of the bulk pickup, but you're not leaving us any options. And if the ordinance states that I can't store these bags, you're going to turn everybody into dumping into common properties, which is already a problem in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods as well. So I ask that you consider changing the language of this or rewriting it to state that there is a allotted time prior to the bulk pickup dates, both in the fall and in the spring, that allows for residents to store these bags in a neat and orderly fashion on their property prior to moving it 7 days before bulk pickup to the right of way. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Debbie. Next is Beverly Utz.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. I was hoping that I could talk while our senator was here and our gentleman about the bridge, but that didn't happen. So I will just continue where I left off last summer. It became such a interesting summer. Of course, we've dealt with traffic on 11th Avenue forever. Last summer was a little bit different in that, if you see something, say something. And I just wanted to make sure that this was addressed when I saw the nature of the people that were coming through, and it appeared that they were more aggressive, more angry. Of course, when you sit on 11th Avenue West for 3 hours, you need to go to the bathroom. You need to throw your beer cans or whatever you need to do. You need to chase your kids out of the car, let them run down your driveway, throw gum in our cans, do whatever they want to. And I guess maybe my tolerance level was higher or something in years past, but I don't think that's the case. I think that I'm seeing a lot of angry people, and it scares me. Especially when I try to walk across to my friend right across the street and I shouldn't say technically running over me, but they didn't want me. They were pushing to make sure that I got across quickly. The other one that really addressed me and it prompted me to write the letters to you last year was we normally don't go out on Saturday, Sunday, Friday, whatever, but we had to get out. And this one kind person was letting us edge our way out, and the guy behind him gets out of his car and screams, points to us, and of course gives us the finger, whatever, but very angry. And so we were seeing that kind of behavior, and it's just a warning. You know what I mean? I don't, I'm not a aggressive person, neither is my husband, very calm people, but I wonder about somebody else that isn't that calm. I don't want to mean I'm warning you, but I'm just saying it's a difference. So there you go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Beverly. Mary Lou? Lilius?
First of all, is this part of the public hearing on the bridge? It's
No.
it's not.
It's just your chance to comment to us. We're not here to answer questions or to interact with you. You're just here to talk to us.
Okay, because I was will anything I say or write be put into a record sent to the DOT? Or do I have to send it separately?
You would have to send us separately.
All right. Well, look, I'll simply be quick and tell you a few thoughts I had about the bridge, simply because I've been attending presentations on the bridge for 40 years and hearing the same old thing. But now the need for the bridge, while it's established, it's become imperative. And many bridges have been crossed by way of environmental problems, hurricane evacuation, and so on. And the big issue we now have is how to fund the bridge. And I'm asking the DOT, and I will write to them and to Senator Hoenig, that we need creative financing. Just taking a traditional approach and going to a few commercial banks is not enough. The bridge itself should last a long time, and it is a cash flow asset that some of these big international commercial banks could fund for 40 years. I'm aware that the standard commercial loan, even for governments, is 15 to 25 years. But that bridge, let's hope it lasts for several hundred years. It will certainly be historic. And so they should think of 40-year financing, even 50-year financing. And my impression is that this is a momentous, the task of financing is monumental, and it shouldn't be left to somebody in a back office to find a way to fund it. I'm going to ask that they set a special person or group specially to fund the bridge. And to add to the creativity of thinking, president who raised 400 million for a ballroom. So why couldn't a group or an inspired individual go after tech billionaires? That's what he did. I'm sure, and I'll get off my thing here, but if you think of Jeff Bezos and Amazon and the volume of business that Amazon does on this beach, we ought to be approaching people like that. The odd millions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lilius.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate you so much. All right, next on our agenda, council, is nothing, no old business, correct? So it's just new business. We have a town code text amendment. I'm assuming Cliff is going to present that, okay?
So as Fire Chief Limbacher said, summer is coming, so we put this item on your agenda for you to consider in advance of the summer season. You'll see in your packet a text amendment that would change the hours that unattended tents are allowed on the beach. Listed for you are the other four beach municipalities and what their hours are. And you can see ours is pretty limited, pretty restrictive comparatively. In Southern Shores, unattended tents must come off the beach or be removed by 5 p.m. and not set up until 7 a.m. And so what we're asking you to consider is a look at extending those hours. 5 o'clock, we still have lifeguards on the beach. 6 or 7 o'clock would give folks more time. And the setups in the morning, ideally, we could get them set up and out of the way earlier in the morning. And so we just wanted to check to see if this was something you were interested in changing. What you have in the packet is a text amendment that would change the hours that extend these hours from 6 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Unattended beach equipment and tents would not be allowed on the beach. Right now, it's 5 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay. Council, anybody have any questions for Cliff?
Does this impact at all the Nest people who are out early if you start at 6 a.m.? I think they're out real early in the mornings.
They are.
Up and down. I don't know. But
I don't know.
it shouldn't be, I can imagine them.
Beach is
bringing
pretty
up
wide
something.
open.
Okay. Who enforces this today?
Lifeguards, complaints.
Yeah, who removes stuff if it's left there today?
Public Works.
Who does?
Public Works.
Public Works goes up and down after 6
Well,
o'clock?
if there are tents that need to be removed, Public Works would remove those if the lifeguards aren't on duty, which they
So
won't.
nobody goes down the beach every night to see if there's stuff left?
Correct.
Okay, that's my question. All right.
Any other questions for Cliff? Thank you, sir. Council, anybody have any questions, discussion, or can I hear a motion to approve town code amendment as presented?
I will make a motion to approve the amendment to town code. Which one is it here?
26-02.
26,
yeah.
yeah, 2026-02, to the suggested amendment of beach hours would be from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. For equipment, tents, beach going equipment on the beach.
All right, there's Mark's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Rob has seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Our TCA 2026-02 is approved. Okay, next is council business, I think. Have we taken care of everything, Cliff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so next is council business. Rob, would you like to start?
Yeah, we filmed a video with the police chief and the fire chief called the Door Saver Program. It is out on Current TV presently, and we'll have the world premiere here at the next council meeting. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. You can sign up at the firehouse. Instead of having either the fire department, the police department, or EMS people go and break down your door and get into the house, you can actually register with the Dare County Dispatch. And it's protected privacy-wise. And they can get a code, either get in through a cipher lock on your door, or the fire department can mount, it kind of looks like a real estate type lock box, so they can get into your house. We have a lot of, or a, garage door opener. And they can get into your house. And if you're having a medical emergency, there's a lot of folks here in Southern Shores who are older, living alone. Doors and then windows now are very expensive. And having them break down your door to get into your house with a medical emergency especially is not what you probably want to have happen. So the video kind of goes over all of that, and it's out. You can look at it, and there's phone numbers there to contact people to avail yourself of the program. Totally voluntary. 2, this coming weekend is kickoff for the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's down in Manio. Starts at 11 o'clock and goes through 7 at night. I think we have on our website the big agenda. If not, just go out and look at 8250 Dare County. There's also celebrations over at Festival Park. There's some tribute bands there, Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute band, a whole host of others. Tickets are free, but you have to sign up for a ticket. I'll be volunteering down there. So there's an inordinate amount of things going on in the town of Manio itself, and then also from 4 to 7 at Festival Park. Upcoming is a meeting for Current TV on Wednesday. So I will be attending that for the town.
Thanks, Rob. Matt?
I'll be very brief. We have a 9 a.m. meeting tomorrow morning for the Entry Corridor Committee. Most of the agenda will be prepping for our presentation on Thursday morning to the boat club.
Very good.
So,
Thank you, sir. Mark?
Okay, I'll try to be quick. The tour board, we've had several meetings since the last time. A couple things. We had a grant committee meeting. The money that's collected tax-wise from rentals and everything else that goes on in Dare County, as annually this year, we had $425,000 to spend on events. And we get requests twice a year for events, one in the spring, one in the fall. So our first tranche, we spent $209,000 of the 425 on events like turkey trots and the seafood festival and other events that go on down at the event center down in Nags Head, or other events all up and down Dare County, all the way to Hatteras and Hatteras Village, and all, of course, to the Duck Festival. So the county takes the tax money that's collected, tour board, takes the money that's collected, that's allocated to us, and we do that. We just, we did the first part of the year, we did, like I said, we gave out $209,000 of the 425, and it's because we always have one that's done in the springtime. That was the fall event. So we just did the spring, and we approved $208,000, and we request for $360,000. So we go through each one of these. It's based on how many attendants are going to be there, what's the economic impact, and a lot of these are for local residents too. It's just not for the tourists. It's for the local residents, and it's our way of giving back. But anyway, the money that's collected, so we easily spent $425,000 in the fiscal year that we're in right now, and we just gave away $208,000 out of the 360. People always ask for a lot, and we always have to cut it back because we only have so much funds to pay for. Second thing is maybe some of you guys don't know this, but the tour board, along with, and again, the money that's provided the tour board is from tax collections. We're splitting the cost of building pickleball courts down at the Nags Head Event Center. This is part of a major long-term plan down there. I know some people that don't play pickleball, but believe it or not, it's an incredibly popular sport. And we think by building these 10 courts down there in conjunction with the county, as well, we're splitting the cost, that we're going to be drawing people and tournaments to the area, usually in the off season, not the on season, the off season, which is usually the slower time. And we're also funding a traffic light down there at the event center as well. If any of you have been to the Seafood Festival, any of the other things, the traffic is tough. The police will still be there, but we're going to actually have a traffic light. So those aren't cheap. Got about $250,000 for a traffic light. It's just crazy what they charge. And of course, that's run by the state. So, but we have a traffic light going in that we're funding, and we're funding pickleball courts as well. So again, this is tax collections. We're always 2 months behind on collections, but so far we were up. Meals collections were, occupancy was up 2.8% over last year through January, and meals collections were up 6.5. Tax collections were up 6.55% over the previous January. That's the latest we have. They're always 2 months behind on telling us when the collections are come through. As crummy as the weather was in January, we consider that to be pretty good. Okay, we're really thrilled with that. And last thing is we are in the middle of our budget cycle right now, and we're forecasting about a 6% increase in tourists this summer. So sad thing is we won't have a bridge to put them on. So we'll be dealing with that through here. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Mark. Paula?
Okay. Tomorrow, I will have the pleasure of going to the ARPO meeting in Hertford. Wes Haskett and I both sit on those boards. We don't have a vote. Nobody in Duck has a vote. Well, he has a vote on the, Wes, you can vote on the transportation. And the advisory board. So we've got one vote on the advisory board. There are 10 counties. Each county has a vote. We've done some polling for those counties, but don't really have any commitment about where they're going to go. Primarily, the answer I've gotten from folks is we have to go how our commissioners want us to go. Somebody asked about follow-up emails. I have about 5 emails from people who could not be here today, and I talked to the NCDOT folks, and they told me to forward those on to them. Ronnie Sawyer gave me his card. You can send him one directly at rksawyer@ncdot.gov, and if you call me or send me a text, I'll let you know what it is. And I think you can just send one directly to NCDOT without him. I certainly will convey the comments that I've heard today. I think we're in a very tough situation simply because of this money being on the table and being susceptible to being allocated to other counties. Even though this bridge, as Senator Hayning said, is important to other counties, I don't know if the prospect of that money, I don't know. I have talked to somebody in Greg Murphy's office, and what I was told is they're following this very closely. Of course, I think we've just lost him as a representative. So
Well, after the election.
after the election. So anyway, and just some background, this was first raised by NCDOT in the ARPO meeting. I think it was February 18th, and it was completely shocking to everybody in the room. We could not believe what we were hearing. In fact, one person asked him to just cut to the chase and tell us what he was advocating here or suggesting. And that's when we got the first real information. They held a second meeting on March the 10th to clear things up, much like they did here today. I think they've met with Currituck County
Last week.
and us. I don't know if they met with Dare County. We do have resolutions from Dare County, Currituck County, Duck, us. So I think we had an excellent suggestion today to take this to the governor's office if we can. And we just haven't had a lot of time to get anything rolling here. And anyway, so tomorrow, I agree with our mayor. I don't know why they have to make this all or nothing. pulling us out of that STIP certification is, I think, is going to be really difficult to ever get back any pledge for funding. But I will go tomorrow and I'll report back.
Thank you, Paula. Very quick. Next Saturday, in addition to be the 250th anniversary celebrations in Manio, here in Southern Shores, it's Earth Day, sponsored by the Southern Shores Civic Association. I think there are volunteer activities taking place between 9 and 11:30. And then starting at 11:30, there's going to be some pizza and drinks out at the marina. And the reason I'm mentioning this, or not, well, several reasons, but so obviously you've volunteer opportunities for Earth Day, doing cleanup projects around town. But at the marina, there will be a table with the Resilient Coastal Communities Program consultants that we are working with to develop our own, essentially a plan for resiliency. And you can interact with those consultants. They'll have maps there. You can ask them questions. Obviously, we want everyone to take that survey that Cliff pointed out. So please take the time to do that. Also, don't forget the following Saturday, the coolest thing in Dare County every 2 years, the Flat Top Tour. Of course, the best one is right up here at 13 Skyline Drive, owned by the town of Southern Shores. And our next meeting is Tuesday, May the 5th at 10 a.m. Going, gone. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, everyone. Except we